Today we are learning basketball with Alan Guillou, Director of Basketball Operations at Santa Clara, Scouting and Analytics. Just finished his fourth year with the program. Excited to dive in to all things Alan Graves as a person, a college player, a draft prospect, and of course, your process getting into basketball to where you are now, and maybe end the pod highlighting some of fun memories from Santa Clara and France basketball and their development. But first things first, how are you doing today, Alan?
I'm great. I'm great. Thank you very much for the invitation. Been a listener for quite some time, and it's super cool to be a part of it and talk Santa Clara basketball, French basketball, and Iron Graves.
Absolutely. I mean, talk about, a player that has just jumped onto the national scene. Shout out at Avi and the draft Twitter and the double bonus podcast where he made an appearance. I caught some of that to prepare for this a little bit and learn some things about Alan as a person and his come up. So shout out to Niall and Finn and all them over there. But yeah, just super cool to see him, pop out on the scene. But before we get to Graves and everything, I would love to hear a little bit about your process. What brought you to Santa Clara? Can you give us a little background of your journey and experience in basketball? And I'm sure we'll get into a little bit, but how you value analytics and scouting and how that kind of all came together for you.
Yeah. I'm born and raised in Paris, France. Was a huge NBA college basketball fan over there. Worked for a couple of websites. So also did some podcasting back in like the 2010s. Worked on some basketball podcasts. One was about scouting. Was lucky to meet a couple of scouts, pro scouts in Europe, NBA scouts over there too, to learn more about the work of a scout. And then was lucky to travel some tournaments in Europe. Those ANGT, so I did this next generation, which is kind of like under 18 European Championship with club teams. Travel in Spain, Italy, France, of course, Serbia, and then in the summer, 2021, traveled to a couple of FIBA tournaments um, in Europe, under 18 and under 16, and met one of the assistant coach at Santa Clara, Jason Ludwig, who was really doing international recruiting for a long time. I think since 2016 and 2017. So and they had a GA spot open for the year after, so 2022, 2023, and they offered me the spot. After we met and we talked, the goal was to help with international recruiting, was to even try to get under the radar French players, under the radar college players. 2021 was different in 2026 for international recruiting with college players, because now all of the players are potentially college targets. It was not the case in 2021. So the goal was to try to find players that were potentially under the radar that would fit college basketball. And also with some of the work I was doing and learning, the goal was to help with some analytical works that could potentially help the program. So that was some of the main reasons why I came here as a GA. Did that for 2 years. It was amazing. And then Herb Sendek, offered me a job after my second year as a GA to stay on the staff. So I've been there for 4 years now.
Very cool. That sounds super interesting because I'm sure the challenges. I'm sure like the whole paradigm changed. I guess when the as you said the international players that became available, the pool of prospects just like exploded. I imagine in a
Yeah.
way once the rules changed there. What were some of the challenges? Maybe I'm obviously a lot more aware of all the data in basketball development in America more so than international data. What are some of the challenges in putting data on the right scale to actually maybe know the level of a competition for a certain player is right versus another player with the varying leagues and everything over there?
Yeah, it's a great question, and that's a real challenge if you don't know. It's like in Europe, people see college basketball as one big thing, and it's not. And in the
Right.
US, people see people see overseas basketball as one big thing. But there's so many different levels that you have to be aware of. It's like this kid is playing pro, he's playing in a pro league. Okay, what pro league? How many minutes is he playing? What is he doing with youth team too? So under 19, under 20, all of the stuff you have to know basically, to try to not guess. So one is to have like a different like a knowledge of all the leagues. So domestic countries, how they work, like the pro team, and what's the level of the youth team? Are they playing under 18, like in Spain? Are they playing under 19? Like in other countries, under 21 in France, I was able before I came to the US to work for another 21 French team. Actually, our point guard was Ilias Kamardin that played at Ole Miss now. So I did some scouting for them, like some benevolist scouting. So that was pretty cool. So you have to know that. And number two, I think you have to use any data you can and try to combine it. So if a kid that we recruit plays FIBA, you have 6, 7 games in the in the summer, for example. You have if he plays NGT, you could have 4 games or 7 games. So that's at least 16 games of data for a year that you can have. And then if he plays in the domestic league, you have some games. So you're never right. You're guessing sometimes. And I think eye test and seeing the player live is extremely important. That's why Jason Ludwig or others are we're extremely committed to international recruiting. So we travel a lot to some of those tournaments. Um, we've been pretty successful, I think, getting players. Um, like honestly, most of our international kids they all pan out. That's because of the way we play. I think that's the because we're pretty selective in who we go after, but also because we have a pretty solid knowledge of the different levels and the data, as you said. So it's a mix of all of that stuff that makes us, I think, pretty good at targeting specific prospects.
Yeah, I mean, the way you describe it, it seems like with how front offices are expanding already in the college scene, like not only do college teams seemingly need a GM now, they also might need international scouts and local scouts, just like a pro team would.
Yeah,
I mean, they have to fully operate, and you're like, obviously you don't have to do these things, but if you're just completely missing out on the majority of the world by ignoring it. So,
yeah,
it's almost like, it's just another tool, just like analytics itself is another tool for decision making. You have a leg up by having as much information available. And it sounds like, especially the way you describe it, like you really have to have all that context to understand a player's skill set or impact translating from one league to a FIBA to NBA. That was one question I asked Franz Wagner once before the NBA season, fresh off his FIBA play. What what are the differences, say, in scouting, like the style of play, let's say, between an international game and here? Like, is there anything you have to account for to when you're scouting to say, that work, he's good at this over there? Like, the goaltending rule comes to mind. Like maybe that's one where it's a skill internationally, but it's breaking a rule here. So, where does that come in, or does it factor in at all? Is it just simply the same game and you're looking for the same skills and it just happens to be different rules?
well, I was doing work at St. Cloud, so watch a lot of AAU basketball. So I'm able to see the differences. I would say um, there's not like I said a perfect science into a projection. You're always gonna miss. You just need to miss less than you eat. I would say that's kind of a rule here. Um, I would say though that European basketball, especially in the summer, so FIBA, um, would be sometimes a bit more team organized than some of what happens in the US, just because of the practice time. the practice time. Those kids usually know themselves pretty well. I'm not saying that AU team don't practice. That's not true. Some of them run really good stuff. But I think in Europe you have to run good stuff to get quality shots, more than in the US. The dynamism of the guards is just not the same. So that's why sometimes recruiting European guards can be tricky and challenging, the style of play. Um, but yeah, I think that's a good question. I think why I've been studying right now is the European bigs are doing really well in college basketball. That's a target. It's also a niche because, I mean, there's less big people in the world. So if you are big in the US, you're going to be extremely highly recruited. So the translation for the bigs has been something that we've been all studying, and we've had great success with European bigs, from Italy, Germany, uh, Canada. So that's always been something. Argentina always been something we've been looking at.
Yeah, definitely. The league is definitely kind of reverting back to size if it ever really left that, I guess, to
Yeah,
begin with. So trying to target and find the actual the biggest players with the skill. It makes a lot of sense. With Santa Clara this year, a historic run, 26-9, the 10 seed, making the tournament, first time since Steve Nash. Shout out to Nash as well, of course, with the
yeah.
historic run. Let since I've already mentioned him, what does the kind of the Nash season mean for your team? Like, is that something of inspiration? Is it something you guys look at or reference or talk about? Is it what does that season mean to Santa Clara before you even get into this is 20 years, 30 years later almost by now. So this is almost a totally different, totally separated, but still special that this program had considerably between Alan Graves and now Steve Nash, and we've already mentioned, or before the pod we mentioned Pods and J Dub, but these are two really all-time prospects by the numbers. How does something like that happen?
Yeah, we're aware of all the Steve Nash stuff. One, because he comes back to campus maybe at least once per year. Um,
Okay.
Talks to our team. He came 2 years ago, I think, back to campus. That's the night we beat Gonzaga at home. So that was a pretty good night. His former coach and the former like athletic director at the time are always around the program. They're like legends here. And they always come like maybe once a week, once a month to practice. They are at every game. So, and I mean, Steve Nash is what, like two-time MVP, one of the best international player of all time, one of the best point guard of all time. So, everybody knows Steve Nash. Like, he's a big part of our recruiting pitch when we talk to kids. He's We've also have had a lot of success with Canadian players. Elijah Mai, that was on our team this year, is from Canada. We've had great players from Canada over the last like 6 to 7 years. So it's huge. It's huge, and it was cool 30 years later to be able to go back to the tournament. Everybody was like, "Oh, we've been so close for like 4 to 5 years since I've been here. We won more than 20 games every year, beat some quality opponents every year, beat high major programs every year. Got two NBA players, but we just like didn't finish the job at sometimes, and that was good to finally did it this year.
Yeah, I mean, the Santa Clara has been one of the most fun teams of the season. I think, in terms of college basketball, I think teams that might hit you unexpectedly, that are just play a different way than everyone else, that find success. That's what makes basketball fun. Is it's not a carbon copy. Every team is the same thing, and everything just goes as expected. Like there's just a ton of different factors that a lot of people do their best guesses, and we're in the prediction game, and then you gotta let the ball bounce and see how it plays. I mentioned Graves being considerably, potentially, I suppose, an all-time prospect based on some of his impact metrics. He has the 10th highest BPM of any freshman going back to whatever Bartorvik starts recording, I think 2008. And That also includes Caleb Wilson in this draft class and Cameron Boozer right ahead of him. And otherwise, it's pretty much just unicorn number one picks around him at that impact. Darren Peterson's right behind as well, but Evan Mobley, Karl Anthony Towns, Shed Holmgren, Kevin Love, Michael Beasley, Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, and Zion Williamson are the only freshmen since 2008 to have higher impact ratings via BPM. That's, off the charts itself. Like that gets your attention. So, you see that, let's say an analytical scout sees that number and wants to learn more about Allen Graves. How would you describe him as a person before, even getting into him as a player?
Well, as a person, what we tell everybody, because everybody's calling us and everybody wants information about Allen, is that he's generally a great person. It's also that's the type of kid we recruit. Like Coach Sendek doesn't mess with. Character is a big part of our program, of our culture. So we really recruit high character kids, and Allen embodies that for sure. Great person, great family. I remember when he came on his official visit, that was 2023, maybe May or June 2023. And his brother was here, his parents were here, and it was one of the best visits. I was a G at the time. It was one of the best visits I've been a part of. Just like the quality of the questions, the respect, the trust. It was great, and I think you see that even when you face adversity. And Allen came here as a freshman, just won Gatorade State Player of the Year in the state of Louisiana, and he redshirted for us. And he never pointed fingers. He was probably sometimes mad or disappointed, but he was like, okay, I'm going to work. I'm going to improve this, that. I'm going to work on this, that, and I'm going to be the best teammate I can be on the scout team. I'm going to be the best. I'm going to play in those open runs as hard as I can to try to show I belong. I'm going to compete, and I'm going to be ready for year two. And he did. So that was for me a big part to see how good of a person he was, the way he handled that type of adversity during his redshirt year.
Right. And, he was, I mentioned before, he was on the Double Bonus podcast, and picked up a few things from his process. He mentioned his older siblings played college hoops, and that, that is a huge reason that he credits for his own development, learning from, his older brother and sister, picking up those habits, and even down to the rebounding instincts. I thought was interesting that he says just being forced to be a full-time rebounder for his older brother almost taught him a little bit of where the ball is going to bounce in advance, saying he never really gets shots up or anything when he's in that mode. So it's funny to kind of think that whoever ends up, the little brother doing all the rebounding actually is, picking up a skill or so. So now older brothers have a reason to really, convince their little bro to go out, help rebound a little bit. And one other thing that was interesting, he said he thought he was underrated as a prospect due to maybe on the way coming up until this point, maybe due to, I guess scoring in general, or just scoring highlights, scoring numbers compared to his style of play. Like you mentioned, he values hustle plays, winning plays, doing the dirty work for his team. Can you describe that mindset of him a little bit in terms of just his mindset on the court as a teammate and his apparent selflessness, willingness to do, as you were touching on before, whatever it takes for his team to win?
Yeah. Well, that's what you talk about rebounding. That was maybe, and I'm going to give him credit, Ryan Madry, the assistant coach that recruited Allen. When you watch him, because Allen played at a really high level. AU ball, he played for Levon on the YBL circuit, so the Nike circuit. And his rebounding and his feel for the game were the two stuff that Coach Madry really loved. And then why he started to recruit Allen, and then finally got him committed. That was those two stuff, because rebounding translates. Rebounding translates from AU to college, from college to the NBA. Like Brain Pojinski averaged 10 rebounds per game for us as a 6'4" guard. and he ended up being good NBA. He's a really good NBA player. So rebounding was number one. It's always something we track and something that is really important to us. And Allen's an insane rebounder, just because he wants it more than everybody else, and also because he has great timing, really great anticipation, and he has great hands. He just takes the ball from people. There's a clip against Washington State, I think that everybody saw. He just takes the ball from people, just rebound his own misses, and then grabs another one and just finish it. And that's the he's driven by making those hustle plays, and just he wants it more than people. That's why he thinks that's why he thinks he has to be to be impactful. So that's big. And then I think he was underrated sometimes because people judge a lot players by how they look, especially with athleticism. If you don't look athletic or if you don't run athletic, people think that you might lack athleticism because we all have a specific model of how you should look. And when you go outside the box, you people question it. Like Tyrese Haliburton is a great shooter, but because he didn't look great, people maybe thought he was not going to be a great shooter. Even if I don't remember, but at the time he had great free throw percentage. He shot well from three. There was every reason to think he would be able to shoot from three. Well, I'm not saying it's the same with Allen as an athlete, but I think he's being sometimes he's getting underrated because of how he looks or how he makes it look sometimes. But he's on the possession by possession for 20 minutes, 20, 25 minutes in college last year. He was always making the right play and he was limiting mistakes, which I think is underrated. Limiting mistakes is key to winning basketball games. It's a game where there's like a lot of possessions. So if you and every team is supposed to get kind of the same amount of possession. That's why for us, winning the possession game is key. That's one of the main emphasis we preach for our team this year, and we really did that. That's why I think we took that big jump. And Allen was our best player to win the possession game. He gives you extra possessions, and he doesn't turn the ball over. So that was really that's maybe an underrated aspect of him, but for us, it was why he was our maybe most impactful player.
Yeah, that's a really great way to put it. I think he has kind of become the like analytical darling, I suppose, of the draft, or one of them, for those reasons, like creating possessions and ending possessions. The way you put it was perfect, because he stands out not just for the overall impact, but because of winning play metrics, offensive rebounds, the assist to turnover ratio, the steal percentage, and the block percentage. As you said, Avi highlighted and put on my map and draft Twitter map a little bit more of some of those stats, and when you kind of see that that statistical profile, I think also reveals kind of feel and decision making and the instincts that come into winning plays in basketball, and really just those stats in general. So being that high in all of them is a great sign of just consistent winning plays on both ends. And if you buy any of the indicators of like that, not only are you getting winning plays, but there's also potential for scoring and shooting. As he finished the season, his numbers were off the charts. So do you think from the inside, did that feel like a rapid development curve all of a sudden, where I think it was the last 10 or 12 games or so, he's shooting like 90, 45, 50 with 9 threes and 70% true shooting, and 9 threes per 100, according to Avi, the last few games there. Did that feel like everything's just kind of coming together for his development all at once, or how would you describe that kind of development curve for him?
Well, I think he's a fast learner and he's a quick processor, but more than anything, it was a mix of one, we needed him to take that jump to get over the hump. We had like our base of Elijah Mai and Christian Hammond, our two guard and wings that gave us like extremely good production every game. You could count on them to give you some self creation and some creation for others. and we needed Allen to start punishing mismatches, to start shoot more, be more aggressive, play more two-man game with our point guard to open the floor. We have great spacing, so that's why we need him to punish that and use that. And again, I'm gonna credit that to him and our player development. Mitch Smith, our assistant coach, has been. uh, I mean, it's been amazing working with our guys. Our GA this year, Andre Kelly, played at Cal for 4 years and played at UCSB, 6'9", 6'10". He played with AJ Mitchell in college. He played with a couple other guys and he's doing a lot of player development stuff. Those two guys worked with Allen, I think, 3 times per week before practice. Allen just like works a lot, and he works a lot and he works smart. He knows what he needs to do. He knows what he needs to get better at. He has a big chip. He reads everything on social media that people say about him and stuff like that. So he wanted to show he could do more. He knew he could do more. So all that stuff came along. That was a necessity. That was a need for us, for him to take that jump. There was a willingness for him, I think, to show he could do it. And yeah, the structure with Coach Mitch and Andre to be able to work on those stuff, work on those some of those mismatch punishing finishes, those pick and pop stuff. Like, so it was like everything came along actually at the same time, and credit to him, because without that, maybe didn't win as many games. I'm pretty sure we would not have won as many games.
I mean, especially kind of like with the extra scoring punch. You mentioned Washington State, his season high 30 points with 9 offensive rebounds in that game alone. An incredible run to end the season. I'll pull up one data viz I made of the draft class that I think highlights Alan Graves' defense, according to Cerebro Sports, that tracks all the college players' stats and put it on one scale. You can see Allen on the far right here, which says he has the highest defensive rating in the whole class, a 99 out of 100, like off the charts for them. And that's more, but the DSI leans a little more into like steals and fouls. So, how many forced turnovers do you get without costing your team and reaching, and that balance. The around the rim, the color of the circle, the darker the shade, the better around the rim they are. And he's, a darker shaded circle in there along with all the big men. This kind of highlights that the overall impact stat vertically and the defensive stat horizontally, obviously these kind of stats do favor some big men because of the rebounds and the blocks and that. But I think it also shows, like, when a guard or a forward is up there with the big men, like they really got to be doing something right in terms of the winning plays and all that. So just like every stat that you're looking for in terms of winning plays, hustle plays, he jumps off the page. And I think personally, when it comes to like defensive prospects and what works in the NBA, like, defense translates. You're going to be, if you're an elite defender at this level and hustle play, winning play guy, like, that's going to translate. Will you have a role offensively to stay on the court, because the game moves fast and it's high pace and you have to like keep up with both sides? And for him to make that development as, a play finisher, a versatile play finisher, like you said, at the rim with strength, with footwork and fundamentals, from beyond the arc with the 3-point shot. I mean, I think that swing factor really, really opens up possibilities for how high his two-way impact can get, because the defense should be off the charts. So if he can start hitting like any volume of threes consistently like that, I mean, that's a real game changer. And he was a great percentage this year. There's plenty of reason to believe in the shooting indicators. So, speaking of the shooting, I gotta ask, what's going through your mind, March Madness, the moment Graves pulls up for what should be an all-time March Madness moment, game-winning knockout punch of a shot? Tell me what's going through your mind right when he hits it, or even before. Is there any of that? With him, there's not a no, yes moment, but like, what's going through your mind in that moment, before and after, and of course, after everything with again, and I'm referencing Kentucky, Santa Clara, March Madness, Graves hits the first shot, and Oweh banks in the half court heave right after to kill the vibe. But right before that, what's going through your mind?
Well, I was so we down two, we up two, we give up a bucket on a out of bounds play, and our goal is always like to get in bounds and try to play fast, try to find a good shot. PPP is the best in the first 10 seconds of a possession, so try to find a good shot early and give the ball to our point guard, and he made the right play. We Allen popped, and we all knew he was gonna make it. Like I mean, I've been here for 4 years, and he's the type of kid is wired different. There's not a different. There's a lot of kids like Allen Graves that have been around. And yeah, then there's all that chaos that happens, and some of our guys just didn't execute what we needed to do, and that's fine. That's college basketball. We still ended up like giving up not the easiest shot in the world, and the guy makes it. It's a game of make or miss, and he made it. And congrats to him. They won the game. They played good in overtime, and I think for us more than anything, we show that we belong against any of those quote unquote high major program blue bloods. We've been feeling that way for 4 to 5 years. Like every year I've been here, we beat high major teams. Like we in the non-conference, we try to scale as tough as possible because yeah, we've been Oregon, we beat TCU twice. Like we expect that. We beat Cal, we won against Stanford, we beat Washington State the year they went to the tournament with Jalen Wells. So we just felt like sometimes we didn't get all the respect we should have. But then you finally make the tournament, you have a good show against Kentucky. People start to respect you, and we see that right now in the when we talk to young prospects, when we talk to kids in the poll, you can tell they all watched that game, and they all knew we were good, but it was one more step to gain some great respect on the national stage.
Yeah, exactly. I think like having that national stage gives the team an opportunity to not only be the whatever a ranked top 60 team on a chart, not just like on paper, yeah, a possible great story. Like here's the team. Like they're as tough and as big and as bad as any of these other blue bloods out there. And
Yeah,
the level of competition or like the division or whatever, like this is college hoops. Like anyone can beat each other any night, especially when you're rolling out a whole team that's strong, let alone like an individual talent like Graves as well is on your team who can literally be as impactful, if not the most impactful of any player any night that it at this level this year. And that's across the board. So, I think
yeah,
you
exactly.
definitely,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, we like you mentioned Tovik. We've been top 35 on Tovik this year. Like we were top 50 the year before. Like some of those advanced numbers really favor us, but we have two guys in the NBA. Adama Ball playing in the NBA at the end of the year with Memphis. Guys playing in the G League, guys playing in Europe at the highest level. Some of those like teams the last few years lost kids in the poll to Ohio State, Texas Tech, and so yeah, teams people know that we're really good, but it was great on that national stage, like you said that day, to say yeah, just let's roll the ball, and we felt like we were going to win the game, honestly, and now that's a tribute to the program and the culture we've built.
Absolutely. I mean, you earned that opportunity, and the ball bounces a certain way, like you said. And there's something about March Madness where there's a little magnet at the bottom of the net for some of these shots. Like the
Yeah,
craziest shots you ever see are normally coming in the last 5 seconds of one of these March Madness games. That's
yeah,
what makes it exciting. But I think, like you said, a season that helped put Santa Clara's brand on the map nationally just by being involved finally and getting that invite. And hopefully, that just like you said, you kind of earn a little more credibility in the conversation that when you're trying to recruit or whatever it may be. So, you it's a good thing, and you kind of should be rewarded for it, as you're saying. Kind of your program should be rewarded in the sense of like you should get more opportunities. Like other big teams should not be afraid to play you. Like it should be good for everyone now. Like it's just good business. So,
Exactly.
I'd like to switch over a little bit towards some of your French basketball perspective. One player you mentioned, Orlando Magic pick Noah Penda, we talked about before. We had talked before on that you actually saw some similarities maybe between Allen Graves and Noah Penda as prospects. Not that they're the same prospect, but just some similarities or differences. I was wondering if you could share some of your thoughts on Penda as a player, but also any thoughts comparing the two as prospects.
Yeah, Penda's member of that 2005 French generation was an all-timer with Sarr, Rizichet, Dadier, Salan, Mohamed Diawara. It's an insane generation, completely insane. And Noah Penda is a big part of that generation. We've been watching him since he was maybe 15, 16. And he possessed some of those similar aspects in Allen. I think they're pretty different players, but the strength they play with, I would say, and the defensive instincts in terms of steals and blocks, they're great players to win the possession game, I think. And that's what makes me think they could be a bit similar. Me and Allen watched actually some Noah Penda together a little bit, because Allen. So he was aware of that, and we watched him a little bit, and yeah, just that mix of strength, size, and ability to impact the possession game is something that's pretty similar between those guys. Those guys are like really important in the NBA right now. And anytime I watch NBA games, and I watch them a lot, you need those guys. They don't need the ball. They're gonna get the ball for you and create more possessions, and they're gonna limit mistakes.
Yeah, I like how you describe some of the similarities to there. Definitely, the strength, the strong, big wing that just helps your team win with winning plays stands out about them. I think Aaron Gordon has become kind of an example of that best archetype role, maybe next to Jokic, where I actually think those type of pairings are like the best to get the most out of a player like a Penda or or a Graves is pairing them with an all-time offensive talent that can kind of where they can kind of get the most out of each other, like Steph Curry and Draymond Green both complementing each other, or Steve Nash and Sean Marion. This idea of like a super creator with a super play finisher, where one you have a defensive anchor and an offensive engine combining forces, making each other better. That's one example, I think, of just what the best version archetype of that player type could be, and clearly just an example of where they can find success at the next level. And the like we said, the defense translates for guys like this, especially big wings that bring plus defense. You can practically switch just about 1 through 5 if they have the mobility and the length and speed to kind of keep up with that strength and size of theirs, like these two do. So, like you said, if they make winning plays, and that translates. So if they develop kind of the skill around that, I think, to find that two-way impact like they have been doing, then they're just going to keep moving up. Like Penda proved he's like he earned minutes already as a rookie in a crowded Magic locker room. And I think if they're in a different situation, he would have like. He was such a good rookie, like he probably would have been a good choice for the playoff rotation. That's how good he was, and it just it didn't work out that way this year. But he's got it for sure. So
Yeah.
definitely think Penda's going to be around a while, just being a winning player and just a good good basketball player. So on kind of let's call it this French basketball revolution, if you will. Wembanyama, Rudy Gobert, so many great prospects you named. What is it about the defense, I guess, coming out of France? Because that's what stands out to me is all these different great defensive prospects, obviously highlighted by Wembanyama and Rudy Gobert, two of the decade's most dominant defenders. But, Bilal Coulibaly is another plus defender, great defensive prospect. You named a ton. What is it about the culture or the style of play? Is that it, or what is it about the talent that seems to lean towards defensive archetypes with size, strength, mobility, all coming out of France, especially like maybe more recently?
Yeah, that's a great question. You can also mention like Ryan Rupert. That was also a great defensive prospect. So I think there's a couple of things. We have great size and length in France, and that's sometimes those prototypes have kind of like they're pushed on top. So that's the one that getting developed the most. And I would say if you want to play in France, if you want to play in a French league, if you want to gain minutes with the pro team, we have like the former mid-major stars point guard over there that take the shots, like the Mike James, like all those like really good point guards in the French league. We have all of them. You're not gonna gain minutes at the pro level to play um, as a primary ball handler. Only Nolan Traore is someone that was that honestly. All of the other guys, they were complementary pieces and like role players. Um, so that's what you in practice. That's what the coach emphasis in the game. They're gonna be asked to guard the ball and make plays on defense and not make mistakes on offense. So I think that mindset and creates prototypes of players that just want to guard the ball, make plays. I think some of the stuff we start seeing in the NBA, I've been in Europe too, with the picking up full court, tagging up, so the rebounding, sending five to the glass. So everything regarding a length, explosivity, athleticism is being really used. So that's why some of those guys really fit that mold. So yeah, I mean, Wembanyama and Gobert are like insane prospect, but you also have guys like Musa Jabari. I mean, he was in the U.S. He's been in the U.S. for a long time. Played high school, went to college, but he's French too, and he's been great in the possession game for Charlotte.
Oh, he's totally changed their season. I mean,
Yeah,
he was one of the biggest changes flipping their season around. That his versatility.
exactly. So we have a lot of like length and size, but the guard play is also good. Like we have like some of the best point guards going on in EuroLeague are French. Um, Nadia Ifi, Sylvain Francisco, those guys are less known in the US, but they are one of the best players in EuroLeague, and they're French point guards. So it's a good mix. But the one that make it in the US, honestly, are the guy that can impact the possession game, protect the paint, and guard. Like it's the way it's the ticket to enter basically, and then you hope to develop something else. Like Sidi Sissoko has some passing ability, always had some passing ability. Usman Yang is extremely talented ball handler because he grew up as a point guard. um Bilal Kubali is that super late bloomer guy, uh but all those guys have the tools to at least be on the floor as on-ball defenders, creating chaos, and that's the calling card. Then the development on offense and other stuff needs to go. But they all have that because they've been trained to do that in the pro game in France. If not, the coach is going to be really mad at you and you're not going to play.
Well, five depoys since 2018 between Gobert and Wembanyama, Defensive Player of the Years,
Yeah,
in the NBA, just to round that out. But that makes a lot of sense. That's interesting that the opportunity to succeed over there is hustle plays and winning plays, helping your team win off the ball. And essentially, like that, I think that goes for, earning minutes in the NBA too, as you're saying, like there's only two, three guys that can really be your ball handlers that create everything. Everyone else in the rotation has to kind of fit in. And
yeah,
being able to fit in while playing team first basketball, two-way impact, obviously dribble, pass, and shoot and defend your own, but just being able to also make team first decisions like that, those are valuable players for every NBA team. And I think we're seeing a shift. Maybe it's because of the salary cap as well, towards more depth of good basketball players that don't cost these supermax salaries, and that just also opens the door, I think, for more opportunity in that sense. So, I want to round out the pod with just any thoughts on team the Olympics and FIBA and any of your favorite, let's say, French basketball memories. One of my favorites was recently C'est Diable de Curry, the devil named Curry, the all time shot, or the all time call by Steph shot in the recent France USA game. I mean, I think this is just going to be a budding, if not already a budding rivalry. It is, like, going forward internationally with all this great talent that France has, and Wembanyama spearheading. Like, I think it's safe to say he's the favorite for Defensive Player of the Year for what feels like the next decade. Like, it's going to be a real challenge to, like, his biggest opponent is the 65 game rule in terms of the award. But round out the pod for me on just kind of your thoughts of where France is in terms of Olympic play and FIBA play, and appreciating not just this team but the full trajectory to get here, where I know there has been quite a few maybe silver medals of coming really close in big tournaments along the way as well for some of the all-time teams.
Yeah, exactly. It was not just Paris 2024. As you said, France beat the US a couple of times in the last few years. The World Cup in China. So I know it was not the best team USA, but it was still Jalen Brown, Donovan Mitchell, Kemba Walker. Like, all those guys were like all stars at the time. So France beat that team in the quarterfinals. And then in the group stage in Tokyo, France actually beat Team USA. And then lost in the final. It was a tie game. Kevin Durant and Jason Tatum were tremendous in that game, but France was, and that was without Wembanyama. France was in the game late. And I think the depth, people usually just want to look at NBA teams and NBA players, but we've had a lot of great players playing in EuroLeague that have been former NBA players. Then they don't get the first shot in the NBA. They go over there, and those guys play together. Those guys every summer we have the Euro basket, the World Cup. So it's cool to see them play together and grow. 2024 was good because it was, I mean, honestly, the win against Canada in the quarterfinals and Germany in the semifinals were not completely surprising, but it was still an uphill battle. Germany is amazing. They won the Eurobasket, as you said. They have like a lot of great players, and Canada has one of the best players in the world, and like a lot of good NBA players around it. So it was good to see that. The key is going to be that next generation is going to have to like take the torch from the Batum, Fournier, Nando De Colo was like a EuroLeague legend.
I was just saying, Nando De Colo is randomly in my mind of just a fun player that has been around forever.
Yeah, he's an amazing player.
And Boris Diaw too. One more shout. Gotta sip a little espresso for Boris at about 48 minutes in.
Exactly, and the torch needs to be taken by we're talking about those young generation, the 03, 04, 05 generation needs to like take the torch and win. So I think it's going to be a challenge, but I think if you would have told me 10 years ago French basketball would be in the position they are right now, I would have signed for it. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see all those kids going to the NBA, being on draft boards, coming to college and having an impact, playing at the highest level in Europe. It's super cool, and it offers a great image of the country, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, International play in general, as you mentioned, it feels like every team just has so much more chemistry and continuity, or chemistry from all their continuity of going through these trials and tribulations together through all of the international tournaments, whether it's Olympics or FIBA or their own leagues. And beyond just that generalness, now France has the talent to boot, and like they're going to be a powerhouse. I think it reminds me of like when Spain had the Gasol brothers, and the idea that if any NBA team just wanted to rebuild Spain, they'd probably find a lot of success. Like if you could get a combination of Team France going on an NBA team, like you're probably doing something right. Like we're talking about a lot of top 5 picks at this point, and just a lot of talent flying out of there. So when you combine like the defensive culture, the teamwork, the team first style decision making and play with that talent, like that's a scary opponent for a long time. So I do think they're going to be right up there with anyone in the world in terms of just one team here. Is there any surprises you think for the 28 team that people might not see coming?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, it's early to say, I would say.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, the key is going to be to be healthy, and we're going to have great size, like you said, and we need a couple of those guards to develop, and we need some of those yearly guards to get better and better, and that would give us a shot. The key would be to win the possession game. Like it's a big mantra of Santa Clara basketball, and I hope it will be the same for France.
Yeah, I almost forgot. Yabusele, had a great run that really hit the big block on LeBron, and came over to Philly off that. Reynad is a great prospect over in Sacramento.
Alex is really good too for the Wizards. Like there's a lot of size in France. No,
Frankie Smokes in Tilakina. Gotta get him back. So hopefully, FIBA Fournier shares some of his superpowers with, Nolan Traore or whatever it may be to get some of that, magic shooting touch for the FIBA tournaments. But man, this has been a great podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time today, Alan, to talk a little. Alan, that's a good way to end the pod. Has there any awkward, confusing moments between you and Alan Graves because of the spelling of your names? Like, did he ever get your restaurant order? You ever get his burger or something? Nothing.
Never.
Okay,
No,
see, maybe it's just the sports writer in me, but two Allens on the same team with different names, like it's a lot. It's a lot to deal with. So as a writer, it's just the writer side of me. So
and our last name starts with the same letters too. So so it's AG. So it's
if you guys both were on the team with your own jersey, like how do you it's a lot to deal with. But man, I appreciate it, man. It was really fun. A lot of great stuff in here. Thanks for taking the time today, Alan. I really appreciate learning from your perspective.
No problem. It was great, and hope we can do this again with a lot of Santa Clara players soon.
Can't wait. Let's do it. Have a good one.